Good morning and welcome into the Cowboys Report, a special super early Wednesday live show, which we never do. But we had to go live for the George Pickens trade. That one signed, sealed, delivered, officially a done deal for the Dallas Cowboys. There had been some confusion on the trade details, even when I did the 7 a.m. video this morning. George Pickens heading to the Dallas Cowboys along with a 2026. Wait a minute. Is that right? They also updated the tweets. Let me double check this one. Because the Cowboys had announced it and then changed it as well. 2027 sixth round pick and George Pickens in exchange for a third and a 2027 fifth round pick. Even the Cowboys themselves couldn't quite get those trade details right. So the core of it is future 6 and 5, which Pittsburgh, there's a scenario in which they're bad in 2027. So very minimal pick swaps there. The third round pick is what matters here on this one, as the Cowboys acquiring their number 2 wide receiver. Their biggest move, their biggest splash since Amari Cooper, right? When the Cowboys do big things, it's almost always a wide receiver. They are addicted to wide receiver trades in the end. So Cowboys giving up a third, George Pickens heading to Dallas, plus a later 2027 6th and 5th getting swapped out on that one. So the Cowboys acquiring George Pickens. We'll stay live as long as the supers come in. We'll talk everything about it here. There's going to be some no pushes, so audience will come in a little bit later here. But we'll be here for the next however long we want to be here. Grade the trade for George Pickens. A, B, C, D, or F. It is the pinned poll on today's show as well. 72% voting A, 23% voting B, 4% voting C, 1% voting D or F. There are concerns, I think, with George Pickens that we went into this morning. We'll go into again here kind of on today's show. But they did something. They addressed the huge need. I think the risk-reward angle makes it absolutely worth a third-round pick. So I don't have massive concerns with the value there. If they'd given up the 2, I probably would have said they can't draft for the 2 anyway. So would have dismissed it there. I will say, would have been nice to do the 4th. I had some good memes cooked up for the 4th rounder. I think it would have been kind of funny, just independently, if they'd moved a 4th round pick again and just been I don't want to play with you anymore. I had that meme cooked up of the Toy Story Woody getting dropped. I don't want to play with you as a 4th rounder. So grade that trade A, B, C, D, or F. Go vote in the pinned comment on today's show as well. Let's get us some super chats. We have a menu for you on today's show as well. We'll get to that here in just a second. We got Carl Bruh and Jotman both coming in with supers. Jotman says Gamblin' Jerry Jones is back. When they make moves, it's for wide receivers. We kind of knew already that this was one of the substantive trades the Cowboys were working on. Now it's a done deal as well. Carl Bruss is just happy we did something. I think we can go 12-5 again. The schedule's pretty tough, but I thought there was some pretty good values. I think it was 7.5 over/under wins on the Cowboys. Let me pull that up and double check it. I thought there was already some pretty strong value on that. When the quarterback is healthy, the Cowboys don't they go at least 500. That's kind of what they've consistently been over the course of their NFL career. So over the course of both Dak and the Romo eras. On one hand, if we're going to get mad at them for not doing anything, hey, isn't it fun for them to, actually do something? So I think there's still elements of this team that, probably hold them back a little bit from being the true top-end contender. But I do think this is it's a good trade. I give them credit for actually trying to do things and not just saying we're fine and not doing anything. I will give them credit for that one. And I think that the third round pick is the fair. It is 7.5, by the way, on the over-under. That kind of feels, it should feel it's 8 or 9 wins at minimum, which we'll do the full prediction once the schedule comes out next Wednesday. The Super Chat menu for today's live show. Again, we will stay live as long as these supers come in. $5 Venmo for the Micah decision pool, which this does kind of tie in because George Pickens' agent is Micah Parsons' agent, by the way. So that all gets tied into one there. We'll do the Venmo, $5. You can get your predictions in for when Micah gets signed or is traded. Got you covered there. $10 for baby name submissions. I will text my wife your baby name ideas, and then I will read her response out on air, which should be super fun. $20 for the Beaned Boozled as well. We got some old stale Bean Boozleds. $50 for a beer bong. I'm down to start doing 10:30 a.m. beer bongs. Just up to you guys if that happens or not. That is the rule set down by the bosses. So give me your one-word reaction to the Cowboys trading for George Pickens. Do we have trade top? Is that a graphic? I don't remember if it is or isn't. I like that, yeah. That one works. We're kind of playing around with what graphics we have available here. I'm okay with that one. And I'll just mention, we got all the graphics here. Cowboys also getting back a future sixth. So, of note for that. The trade L3 as well, I think we have. Maybe, if you want to import it. Yeah. All on the fly here. Give me your one-word reaction to the Cowboys trading for George Pickens. I'll give some shout-outs here on the show as well. And then I'll drink my very bad-for-me energy drinks. Oh, look at that. That's yellow, by the way. It's yellow, though, but it's not. That's kind of unexpected. Not a sponsor, by the way. So this is good. Now you can't see who it is. Give me your one-word reaction. Finally, alerted. Finally. I don't know. Sleep deprived? I did not get sleep last night. Shout-outs to toddler Olivia for coming into my room at like, I don't know, 12:30 Eastern time. Enough for me to look at my phone and go like, okay, this is worth doing with the Ricky and then the Nick Harris tweets. And then also I set my alarm for like 7 a.m. Eastern time and just like had to have some fun with it. One-word reaction. Coop questions. Yes, Sylvester, second kid is on the way. So congrats to me on the sacks. Great. Coop, concerning, alerted, appropriate. Somebody said it's a B because he's one drop away from having a mental breakdown. That's part of the concern. It's totally valid. I don't think I can read out Lance Dunbar's one. Interesting, surprised, shock, elevation. Hope is a good one. Hope's a good one. You kind of have that for the first time that you haven't always had. So I actually think Hope's a very good one-word reaction there. Prayers, showtime, congrats, thank you. Excellent, time is in about time, I like it, amazing. Wide receiver too, WR2, I think that counts as a one-word reaction there. Got a $50 super chat from JT. Let's do some beer bongs this morning. Are they done now, or will we see some more moves? Maybe the rumored second trade. Who do you think the second trade could be? Alexander, 5 o'clock somewhere. Good luck, buddy. Thank you, JT. Part of me wonders if the other trade was they had just, worked on a potential trade down. Like that would not be a surprise to me if that's what they were talking about. Like a trade down was really like the main course of conversation there. Alexander's a name we've talked about. Because I'm intrigued as you play nickel and you need that there. I think Sean Sharif had mentioned Breece Hall. I would be a little, frankly, surprised if the Jets did that. Like, I think that might be one where the Cowboys have more interest, maybe. Like, I would have interest because I think that gets you a much better RB1 option, and it would be pretty funny that I did the prize pick slate and have less than Breece Hall in the rushing yards, and then it gets traded, so we'll see how that goes. Like, the Jets running back room, I think there is some frustration there in New York from maybe both sides. I don't know if they want to go into the league season with Braylon Allen, who I like, and Isaiah Davis. Like with a receiving core that consists of Garrett Wilson and it's about who had the worst number 2 receiver in the NFL. It was the Jets, I think. Like Alan Lazard, come on, seriously, the Browns maybe. I would be surprised, but again, why not call? So Alexander is kind of in this he's in this weird spot, and I don't know how that all gets played out with him. I think that's just kind of awkward at this time. But I think that the trade possibilities are back since they've been wheeling and dealing. And, they've only given up, I think 2 or 3 picks total with all 4 deals because they've done a bunch of swaps there. So let me get the beer bong going here. This is the extremely sugary, Simply Spiked Limeade, which will go really well with my not a sponsor Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry Energy drink this morning. I had to have something this morning. There was no way I was going to, a 4 hours sleep, whatever. I needed something. Wes, a $10 super chat. Wow, everyone spam JT in the comments, too. With the Pickens trade, what would you grade this year's draft class? So, I'd say this. I would try to keep those as independent as possible. Because now, if you want to merge off-season grades and kind of combine them there, don't we feel pretty good? I think the process of the head coach is still a huge issue for me, but maybe you still want another running back, another corner, but they did a hell of a lot more than what they have done in the past. And I didn't love the Booker pick, not because it wasn't a receiver, because I wasn't as high on him as some, but it was still not a bad pick for me. It would have been great if you could trade down and get him, but that seemed pretty unlikely. I don't want to boost the draft class grade. I want to try to keep those separate. And then, your off-season grade, which I think we'll do a video on, that one goes up as far as I'm concerned. So, beer bong coming. Extremely limey. I mean, it is limeade, so. Appreciate that, JT, and Wes as well. Again, the news of the day, the morning / the night, but a really weird 14 hours, give or take. Somewhere in that ballpark. George Pickens to the Cowboys in exchange for a 3rd and a pick swap. Steelers get a 2027 5th rounder, and the Cowboys get a 2027 6th round pick. So grade that trade. A, B, C, D, or F. It is the pinned poll as well. 72% voting A, 25% voting B, 3% voting C. There was at one point a vote for D or F. I think that's gone now. It's got 0% D or F. So get those votes in A, B, C, D, or F. Jotman, should we still add Amari Cooper? Let him, Mingo, and Tolbert have a knockdown, drag-out fight for wide receiver 3. My gut tells me that they won't. Because also, if you're Amari Cooper, is this where you want to go now? Now you're going to be at best wide receiver 3 and an offense that's going to still involve other players as well, and you're going to want to get touches for Turpin in some capacity. So my gut says no, that they don't pursue the Amari Cooper side of things. And they let Mingo and Tolbert and even Turpin a little bit there kind of get involved at wide receiver 3. And you will talk about the contract outlook long-term for George Pickens, but I think now with Pickens in place, I feel good about Tolbert. We'll see about Mingo being wide receiver 3. He put up enough production to justify. If you just go raw receiving yards, he was 64th, I think, among all players at wide receivers. Right on that, he's not really your 2, but if he's your 3, that's actually probably pretty solid. So this receiving core, because you added George Pickens, I think so much better. I think you feel now you are no longer in the nightmare place, the bad place of, knock on wood, God forbid something happens to CeeDee Lamb. Ooh, it's not the worst receiving core in the NFL anymore. It's not as good, obviously, but you're definitely better off. So I don't think they're going to go get Amari Cooper now. Then again, I kind of thought the George Pickens trade was dead and it came back to life, so I could be wrong there. What is your confidence level overall in the Cowboys wide receiver room? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Let me know in that comment section. I think there is the possibility that of Pickens is, again, I'll kind of call it football character, is a concern. part of the reason why you add a bunch of higher character players and try to fix your culture is to add the non-culture guys and try to work them into the fold. That's how the smart teams do it. Can you fix it in a half-off season? We'll see, but I think that the upside is worthwhile, and I think we all feel a hell of a lot better about this team than we did in January, right? Don't we all feel a lot better? Or even mid-season last year, or last off-season? I think there's still a lot of steps to take, a lot of them. I think you get a lot of young players. I don't think you're suddenly a Super Bowl contender because you weren't close to that last year, frankly. There's still a lot of uncertainty about the coaching staff, if we're being honest. But I think you've made a lot of good steps forward so far. So grade that wide receiver room. I see 5, 6.5, 9, 8, 8, 10, 9, 7, 10, 5 to 6.5 still. 9, 9, 8, 5. I think those are all like up, 3 or 4 points from what it was previously for the most part. 10, 7, 7, 6.9. I guess that actually is the correct answer again, isn't it? That's how it often ends up going. So grade that a confidence level in that wide receiver room, scale it 1 to 10. Corey, what grade did you have on Pickens coming out of the NFL draft? I had a second-round grade on George Pickens. There were some notable misses of players I had ahead of him. Shout out Sky Moore. And then some notable, I think, hits I had of players above him. The biggest thing for Pickens, and again, it was kind of like the whole thing. I'll read off some of my notes here. There's wide receiver 1 upside with George Pickens. He's also a bit of a wild card, which is what he's been in the NFL. Extremely chirpy, extreme trash talker, tested super well at his size. Again, he's like 6'3.5", 195, ran that 4.47. Didn't play a lot his final season at Georgia. Like, his best year was actually back in 2019. Also is like the wild card football character. Remember, he got ejected from a game against Georgia Tech because he threw punches. Sprayed water on a Tennessee player on the sideline and got unsportsmanlike conduct. Like, there's going to be at some point, at some time, the what the hell are you doing, George Pickens moment. Like, it's just going to happen. It is how it ends. It's just who he is. Now, I think you can rein that in a little bit. It's not a guarantee that it gets reined in. It's just there is the volatile nature to just George Pickens. There's a reason why the Steelers were so willing to move on here and get a third-round pick back and go into the year with Roman Wilson as their wide receiver too. I had Pickens, second-round grade, 40th overall player for me in the class. He was taken at 52nd overall, and he was the number, let me pull this up here. He was number, good receiver class. It was London, Wilson, Olave, Williams, Jahan Dotson, Traylon Burks. That's right, there were 6 receivers in the top 20. Watson, that's 7. Wan'Dale Robinson, 8. John Mechie, 9. Tyquan Thornton, 10. He was the 11th receiver taken in that class. He was, I think, 7th for me, or 8th for me in that year. So higher than where he ended up going in the end. Again, the Super Chat menu, $5 Venmo. You can get into the Micah decision pool. We'll do the split the pot there. Got take home is $15 right now. $10 baby name submissions. I'll text my wife your name suggestion for Tom's second kid. $20 for the Bean Boozled, and $50. I'll keep doing beer bongs. I think we had a 6-pack left, so I can do more of them. It's up to you guys, though, if those end up happening. So that is the Super Chat menu on today's kind of surprise bonus Cowboys Live with the George Pickens trade going down officially this morning after the fun-filled night last night. Gavin Hall, should we trade a 5th for Travis Etienne? I think that's a good, like, hey, this is maybe a name to potentially consider here. Because the Jags, Tank Bigsby had emerged as the RB1. They drafted Bashal Tutin, who I think that coaching staff is super high on, the new regime, in the 4th, and LaQuint Allen in the 7th. Signed Jaquindon Jackson. They have Keelan Robinson as a special teamer. they're not going to carry 5 backs. So I could see a scenario in which Travis Etienne is available. Is the money an issue? Maybe. And how that gets played out, I'm not sure. But I think that's a good name to keep an eye out for. You're just now tuning in. The trade details on the George Pickens trade officially announced by the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys get Pickens, a 2027 sixth-round pick. Steelers get a third-round pick, which was kind of what flipped things over here, and a 2027 fifth-round pick. So a fifth and sixth pick swap. We'll know in a year and a half how big of a difference like that pick swap ends up being. I don't know if it's a comp pick. It's straight up 5 or a 6. I think there's some, that might all be might be a 20 pick swap. Maybe not even a full round. The third is the big asset that the Cowboys give up there. So as of right now, a lighter 2026 draft class. Cowboys, as we broke down yesterday, should get 2 5s and a 6 as the projected stuff there. Again, I think it would have been really funny had they traded the 4th again. I thought that would have been really funny because I had some memes cooked up ready to go because I thought the possibility there. So next question. Will the Cowboys make any more trades before training camp? Excuse me. Y for yes, N for no. I'll put a minute on the clock here. Hold on. Gonna help up my boy Slick Rick. Shout out. First off, shout out Rick. He was on that one from the start. He had that one first. Not I think Rap tried to give Bobby Belt credit. It was not Bobby. It was Slick Rick last night. So anyway, let's put 2 on the clock here, 1 on the clock here. Then we'll kind of get to some planned, not just shoot the shit type of stuff there. So if the super chats come in the next minute, we'll get to those. Otherwise, we'll kind of come to the some more conversation in depth on George Pickens. We'll do a mailbag cut today as well, and then as long as the supers come in, we can stay alive. Once they stop coming in, it's time to go. So Lucid says, finally gave CeeDee Lamb some help. I give this an A+. Give the draft an A+. I'm happy we got a 1-2 punch. But, Tom, can we pay him, Tyler Smith, and DaRon Bland? You absolutely can. We will do an extension candidates video here. If you wanted to, you can absolutely pay Tyler Smith and Dak Prescott and DaRon Bland and George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb and the kicker Brandon Aubrey. Now, the question of, hey, do you want to? It's maybe a more complicated conversation, but the Cowboys, have a decent amount of players under contract next season. And I'll kind of just read this off here. If you extend Micah Parsons, that's going to save you $18 million. Most of that would come next year, so we'll call it no real impact in 2026 to your salary cap. If you want to extend DaRon Bland, there's probably a little bit more of an impact on the salary cap. Tyler Smith would actually probably save you a decent amount of money, so you can kind of cancel that one out. You will end up restructuring Dak Prescott. You will restructure CeeDee Lamb. Those 2 moves alone save you $50 million in salary cap space. There is you'll restructure Osa Odigizua. That's going to get you above $60 million in salary cap space. If you're paying DaRon Bland, you're probably going to cut Trayvon Diggs. That saves you $12 million in salary cap space. And again, I can do all of that. I can pay those guys, and I'm still staring down the barrel of 80, 90, if I want to get really aggressive, 70 in the salary cap space. So I can afford all of those guys. Now, the other moves I have left, maybe you're not going to be super aggressive probably. It is going to be more of a re-sign your own free agency cycle, but don't let anyone fool you. You can we'll do a full video on this. You can pay all those guys if you want to. Are you going to pay Sam Williams? No, probably not. You drafted 3 guys. That's fine. You can make a decision on Terrence Steele. You can afford all those players. Don't let the Cowboys fool you otherwise, especially if you do it with proactivity for once. All right. Mikey Montano, Pickens is a crash out comp on YouTube. Chat, are we cooked? He will crash out. Like, that is going to happen. I crash out too during games. Now I'm not a player, so it's different. That's the downside. That's why Pittsburgh was like, okay, moving on from him and letting Roman Wilson and Robert Woods, maybe Alan Lazard, given Pittsburgh, be the wide receiver too. Like, there's downside here. The third round pick. Pick 85, whatever it ends up being. Like, it's not that much to give up. Even if it's a rental in theory, you can get a comp pick back down the line in theory. Lucid, I think the Cowboys will pay all three of those, knowing the players, knowing they're cheap, or will Jerry just pay Tyler Smith and Bland? I am curious what happens with Pickens. I think the Tyler Smith deal gets done. The Micah deal will get done. It's a matter of when, not if. It's just stupid. It hasn't happened yet. I think they'll pay Bland as well. They only have one franchise tag, which they'll pay Micah, and I think they get the Bland deal. I would like to get the Deron Bland deal done if possible. And then that way, if I wanted to, I could use it on George Pickens, which is that's what they did with the Amari Cooper thing. Except no, they couldn't use the franchise tag on Amari Cooper because they had used it on Dak Prescott, and let Amari Cooper hit the open market, and the Commanders offered more than Amari Cooper, and he ended up coming back because he didn't want to leave Dak and the Cowboys, and then ends up happening there. So, we'll go in depth on this. They've got a ton of money available. The current projected cap space for next year is $10 million. I actually think that does factor in rollover money. I think that factors it in. I'm not totally sure on that front, but I'm like 95% sure it factors it in. But once you restructure Dak and Lamb and Osa, like those three moves alone free up 31, 19, and 12. It's a lot of money just with three moves. Not to mention what you decide with Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson and Steele and Diggs. Like, you've got options there. William Scott Smith, $20. All right, let's spin the Bean Boozled wheel. Thank you, William. I'm going to double-check your comments, make sure there wasn't one that didn't come through. Just once the Bean Boozled. Oh, God. Strawberry, banana smoothie, or dead fish. Here we go. Wait, which is which? I think it's this one. Or wait, no. This one is it. Yeah, that's it. I think. Oh my God, that's so stale. Yeah, I mean, this is not. And I have no idea what the flavor is. This might be the last one. This might be it. These are so stale, and they don't taste like. They just taste mediocre. Like there's no flavor. Like, is it dead fish? That's like a hybrid of all of it. It's not good. It's not good. Vic the Slick. Gosh, terrible. Chewy and bad. Just gonna swallow it. It says, now that we have Pickens, what's the move for a cornerback? I am curious if they make one. Yeah, I think that they like Izzy Mukwamu. They've got some guys coming off injury from corner. I think you're looking for someone to, like, call it half a season, potentially fill in as, like, your nickel outside hybrid player. That's kind of a particular role that doesn't have a lot of viable options. But I would like to add one. I think Asante Samuel could fill that role. If you just want a nickel, can Mike Hilton be a piece for you? Like, do you let Mike Hilton, who he also got benched times on third downs? Like, it's May. The options aren't great. Is Alexander available? The money's a big issue for Jair Alexander too. So we'll see how that one ends up playing out. YouTube J, finally a good off snap after the disastrous 2023. I guess that was the 2024 offseason, wasn't it? There's been a lot of not great ones in a row, haven't there been? Post head coach hiring, a lot of good stuff, right? I think a lot of good stuff, frankly. Certainly better than what we've seen in the years past. The bar is low, but they cleared it. Grant Rainwater, thoughts on Pickens, 700-plus yards and 5+ TDs. If you can get those numbers, aren't you going to hammer the over there? I mean, that's like what Tolbert did last season. Like, Jalen Tolbert last year, which, again, somehow along the way we've kind of made him into, like, Allen Hurns. Tolbert went for 610 yards and 7 TDs. Pickens last year, his worst numbers over the course of his career was kind of like his rookie season, which was 52 catches, 800 yards, and 4 TDs. Now, he only had 3 last year. He is getting a bump up in QB play. He's also not the one anymore, which is different for him. And again, we'll kind of see how that one plays out. But I do think this should get over pretty easy. I don't know if he's going to go for 1,000 yards, but again, if you can promise me, 800 yards and maybe it's 6 touchdowns, like that's good number 2 production. Not elite level, but I think that's extremely doable. I don't think 1,000-yard season is out of the realm of possibility for George Pickens at all. Lucid, George and CD and Tolbert and Ferg are scary. Depends on which versions of some of those guys you get, but it's a lot better than what you had last year, which was a not good Ferguson, who was hurt, not playing well, Tolbert coming along, and Lamb. This gives you, now I'll say this part too, Cowboys have kind of been cursed, or their top 3 playmakers have never actually been healthy together. That's been a trend for years. You guys notice that? Brandon Cooks got hurt again last year. Lamb got hurt down the stretch. The Amari, Gallup, Cooper, and Lamb combination was a great idea. It was great on paper. Those guys played like 5 games together or something. Like Amari was banged up, and then Lamb wasn't the fully realized version, and then Gallup got hurt. Like they never actually played that much together, which was super frustrating. You had the Randall Cobb year where he was actually pretty good. That was also fun to have like the one good year of Randall Cobb. You guys ever think about that? This is the stuff that I think about. You put across the trade details. Like the Randall Cobb's career is like objectively funny for me. He was awesome in Green Bay. He worked. He went for the 1,000 yards in Green Bay, and then 800 yards in 2015, and then he had 2 600-ish yards in 2016, 2017, and then he was terrible and hurt in 2018, had 800 yards in 2019, and then never topped 450 again in his NFL career. Like there was a run of like 7 years of Randall Cobb in which he had like one good season, and it happened to be in Dallas. Like they timed that up perfectly. Kind of funny how that ends up happening sometimes. Because he got paid by Houston, wasn't good in Houston, ends up going back to Green Bay, wasn't good in Green Bay, goes to the Jets for like a season, had like 40 yards or something. It was kind of funny. John, do you have Pickens concerns after Dallas first pit last year? I think that it's not specifically that game, but that's part of the whole thing. Like, do you trust him to not be crazy? Do you trust him to kind of like keep his head on his shoulders? Possibly. That's what worries me a little bit. That's one of the, we'll get into some pros and cons here in a little bit. That's one of the cons. Like, do you trust the football? I'll call it football character, because it's not like he's not a criminal, not anything illegal that we know of. Like, it's just like, can you trust him to like being normal on the field? Like, is he gonna get into fights again? Is he gonna like make horrible mental mistakes? The positives are very real, but I think that is an extremely valid issue there. William Scott Smith, by the way, did comment on his Twitter Super Chat. Says, did we forget about tight end? I think you're hoping that you get better play from Jake Ferguson. He just, last year, never looked right for Fergie. It was never right. His production kind of fell off a cliff. He was banged up, did not score a touchdown. If you can get 700 yards-ish from Jake Ferguson, like he did in 2023, maybe it's a little bit less because you got Pickens now involved too. That's a good outcome. But I think the concerns there are valid there. Lucid, Tom, don't scare us saying we have a curse. It's been like 30 years since you won a Super Bowl. Like you are cursed. It's in large part self-inflicted. But you also can't get your top 3 corners to ever be healthy either. Have you noticed that one too? That's just bad luck. That's how it tends to go in the end. Don't scare us. I appreciate that, Lucid. One more from Vic the Slick, 22. Say what? I don't think that's slick, Rick. That's Vic, not Rick. How do you think the run game fares with this offensive line? Hold on here. Respond to this one here in a little bit. Hold on. The message came in here. Vic, how do you think the run game fares with the offensive line? Hopefully better. I do wonder if this is a good enough core overall, or if you're kind of like a year away still. But I do think I think the schematic changes and the offensive line changes are hopefully going to be better than what we've had in the past. I have some questions on how that will end up playing out as we sit right now. So I wonder if it's good enough, but we'll keep an eye on that. I think that's a valid question mark right now. Maybe you can go find somebody. Maybe your other options will play together in the end. So if you guys like the George Pickens trade, like the video. Goal was always that 50% like ratio. We also got 669 watching right now, so super nice on that one. Got to go back to my days of just screenshotting the 669 and all the 69 numbers there. I just had a bunch of those for like a year. It's just like 69, 69, 69, 669. It was really fun. Like the video, please, and thank you if you haven't already. We will go more in depth on the George Pickens conversation. Come back to some super chats as well. Do a mailbag too. So be live for as long as the super chats come in. Don't go anywhere here on the Cowboys Report. As you've probably heard by now, overnight / super early in the morning, the Cowboys have officially, formally, and announced by the team, made a trade for Steelers wide receiver George Pickens. One of the substantive trades that Jerry Jones alluded to has been made official. These are the details on the trade as announced by the Cowboys. The Cowboys get George Pickens, a 2027, that's not this upcoming draft, but the one after that, 6th-round pick. Steelers get a 27 5th-round pick, so day 3 pick swap a year from now. And the big asset, a 2026 3rd-round pick, which sounds like that addition being added is kind of what put the trade over the top, where Cowboys had not gone into the day 2 range beforehand based on what Diana Rossini had said previously. So a sizable impact here, a substantive trade for the Dallas Cowboys to go out and acquire George Pickens, which very much kind of saves the receiving room, which we'll get into here in a little bit. I do want to focus some big picture stuff like what happens now, contract stuff, everything else, some pros and cons, not just the raw breaking news stuff. Who won the trade, though? S for the Steelers, C for the Cowboys. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. But there's no doubt about it, the impact, the on-the-field boost, that is much better with George Pickens. This is like a souped-up version of the best version of Michael Gallup, with maybe some more drama attached with it there. Only played 14 games last year, still went for 900. I think he's the only player the last 3 seasons to put up at least 16 yards per catch and have 2,000 yards receiving. Or maybe that's the last 2 years he's done that. I forget what the exact stat was from ESPN Stats and Info. There are some valid negatives we'll get into here, and some real pros too. Biggest of which is he filled your wide receiver 2 spot, at least for this year. I do wonder about the long-term outlook. With does he re-sign? We'll go into that in depth here a little bit as well. But you had to get a wide receiver 2. You have one now. You were able to get one of them, and that is George Pickens. It would have been kind of funny if they'd given up the 4th-round pick, because I had some memes cooked up for that one of they just don't like 4th-round picks. But I think the level of talent you are getting is by far the best option you could have found out there. I don't really think there was anybody better who was realistically available. Like, yeah, you could have gotten Garrett Wilson. just trade the Jets three first-round picks. You're actually not going to do that. No one's going to do that. It's like, realistically available, I think Pickens was the best talent who was out there. There are the negatives. I'll kind of group it as football character stuff. We'll go in-depth on some of the pros and cons, contract stuff, what this means for Micah, what this means going forward. But the pinned comment on today's show, I want you to grade the George Pickens trade. If you haven't already, this is the third video we've done on this because we did the super early 1 a.m. one and then 7 a.m. one, all Eastern time there. Grade the trade for George Pickens. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know at the pinned comment of today's show. Kind of mentioned boost number one, or pro number one. It's a huge boost at the wide receiver spot. You did not have somebody of this talent. You needed a wide receiver too if you wanted to be more competitive than what you were in line to do this upcoming season. You had to be better. Pickens is a big upgrade over Jalen Tolbert, over Turpin, over Mingo. Like, now you go from having, like, if knock on wood, if Lamb goes down, we are cooked at wide receiver. It's the worst receiving core in the NFL is what I'd called it without CeeDee Lamb. Now it's not. Now it is decidedly, at least I think, above average. So that's pro number one, the big boost. He also, I think, fits pretty well. Now, I would actually argue, because of who CeeDee Lamb is, your complimentary wide receiver could have been anybody. Like, it could have been a speedy guy. It could have been a bigger body outside X receiver. Not Des Bryant. I don't think that's fair expectation. But that type of big outside receiver who can do a lot of actual vertical stuff for you, that's George Pickens. You haven't had a true, legitimate vertical threat wide receiver in a long time. George Pickens brings you that. You're going to keep calling hitch routes? Pickens can win on those. You want to keep calling goes and some deep posts and even some in and out breakers. Like, Pickens offers the size and the athletic ability that you don't have at wide receiver. He's 6'3" and ran a 4.47 to 200-ish pounds. That's good. And this part too, you were actually selectively aggressive. How many years have I know many of you correctly claimed and pointed out and been upset by the Cowboys aren't doing anything. They're not really trying to make moves to win. They're just kind of like content being a 9 or 10 win team. This does not make them into a Super Bowl contender. I do want to mention that part. I think it does help their playoff chances, but it is doing something with some risk, with real upside to make the team better. That's what matters. So I will give them some credit for actually doing the type of selectively aggressive move they claim they wanted to. A substantive trade, it did go down. We can argue that the football character stuff we'll get to here in a little bit, but we want them to do something. They did something that wasn't Paris Campbell at wide receiver. So for me, I think that does matter. Contract stuff and more to come, but today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can cash in on the basketball playoffs with Prize Picks. Do not miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineups. Points, boards, assists, and a whole lot more. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to 2,000 times your cash today. You also got season-long football Prize Pick slates. I still feel good about the more than CeeDee Lamb 7.5 touchdowns. I think this does help him, and Dak obviously too, with the more thans there. Breece Hall, who will talk about in the future, by the way, less than rushing yards for him with the Jets, barring a trade, which again we'll talk about. We'll use Fields' legs. There'll be some committee stuff. I like the less than there. Do the flex play. You get one wrong, you can still double your money. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. The biggest downside here is this. Like, George Pickens can be, I'll call it a problem child. He's not a criminal, but there's issues here. George Pickens was called out publicly by Mike Tomlin, saying he has to mature, he's got to grow up. He was repeatedly late to games and meetings and all of those things. So, like, that stuff has to get cleared and work in the locker room. That is a completely valid concern. Like, I don't think that should be overlooked. Like, I don't think it should be. It's not. It's I think kind of burying your head in the sand to completely ignore it there. Schottenheimer's made a big deal about wanting to get better culture, better locker room stuff in there. You do that so you can add these types of players, and they don't sink everything. But it is a concern. Like, is it good enough right now? In theory, there's some good leadership. How that plays out, though, does bring risk, does bring downside. So that is something I think has to be mentioned, has to be addressed, because that's why he's available. If George Pickens didn't have issues with the coaching staff, which he had in Pittsburgh, he gets some blame there. Make no mistake about it, by the way. Like, he wouldn't be available. Pittsburgh would be trying to pay him. You're hoping the change of scenery ends up working out there. Now, we will have more Cowboys updates and news and rumors. We did, 3 videos in like 12 hours-ish, 13 hours on the Pickens stuff, because 1 a.m. Eastern and 7 a.m. Eastern, baby. Hit that sub button. More free YouTube videos, youtube.com/CowboysTV. It is kind of an expensive trade cost, too. That third-round pick isn't nothing. I think it is a worthwhile gamble and risk. There is risk. That third-round pick could be anything. Where does it likely slot in? It's probably somewhere in the 80s, right? Like, maybe you get into the 90s, but you're probably there more right somewhere in the 80s. You've had pick 88 a couple times over the years. You had pick 91. Like, that's probably where it slots in. Given the way I think your receiver class looks next year, probably a worthwhile game. But again, it is a pick for a team that does draft pretty well. The other downside here, and this is kind of like the thing I want to spend the most time on, it is the last year of George Pickens' contract. Clarence Hill reports that Pickens himself does not want to do an extension now because he wants to showcase what he's able to do and cash in on the potential open market next year. So I do think there is the risk here of, hey, this ends up being a 1-year rental, which, again, the third in the pick swap, if he does leave, it's probably gets paid a lot of money and probably not that bad of value in the end. I'll go in kind of in-depth on what the cost could end up looking like here, but I do think this is something that won't be figured out for probably a while. So as of right now, do you want to extend George Pickens? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. For me, this one is tricky because I have the concerns I mentioned. Like, do you trust, I'll call it football character stuff. Do you trust that enough to pay him what he's likely looking for and what he's going to command? And if he plays great this year, you've got some more, stability either way. Like, you kind of have a better feel for what the value is going to be. I would bet right now, we're going to the agent stuff, they're going to be looking for at least $30 million per year. Now, you're already paying CeeDee Lamb $34 million. Now, there are other teams on this list, other players, other organizations that are also paying their wide receivers even more money. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith is like 11th on this list or something. He's pretty close there. He's getting the $60 million per year price tag combined. The Dolphins have paid Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The Bengals have paid Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And that top-end wide receiver 2 money has been $28, $29 million per year. That's like the minimum for high-end receiver 2, which is what you want out of George Pickens, right? So I think it's kind of like next year, potentially you're going to be staring the barrel of $30 million if you want to pay George Pickens that price tag. And I'll tell you what, the agent, Jerry does too, so he might have said publicly, George Pickens and Micah Parsons both happen to be repped by David Mulgeta. What do we know that means? You are not getting a discount. You are not going to get a team-friendly contract from Mulgeta and George Pickens. It's probably 30 now, and if he puts up a 1,200-yard season or something great, it's going to be more than that because he's going to be like, I can go be a wide receiver 1 somewhere else. I can get $34, $35 million. which, by the way, is why it would be helpful to pay Micah Parsons right now. Frees up cap space short-term and long-term. It probably gets you in a better negotiating place with David Mulgeta to not F around and find out. Like that, and again, we'll go in depth on some of the extension stuff. You can afford all these guys if you want to. You're not really paying that many guys right now. Honestly, it's like long-term, beyond this year locks. It's kind of just Dak and Lamb right now. Like there's not a ton of investments, big picture, because we'll see about Steele and Diggs. Micah will be one of them. You can afford a bunch more players. Eagles have proven that time and time again. You're going to have to pay Micah $40+ million per year. Again, you can do it all. You're going to pay Micah first and foremost. There is a scenario in which this just ends up being a maybe 1 year and a franchise tag rental on George Pickens. I don't think that's actually that bad of an outcome, depending on the results you get and the play you get. But you got to get that Micah deal done. Like, all of a sudden, your salary cap goes up, your numbers improve for next year. Like, that's what you should be doing if you're the Cowboys. So, predictions. Will Micah Parsons get paid before training camp? 1 for yes, 0 for no. The final thoughts here on the specific George Pickens trade for the Cowboys. In the end, there is risk. There is downside. It is a bit of a gamble by this organization. I think the cost and the upside and all of that put together, I think it ends up being worth it. I don't think it was some elite level steal, because there is some of the football character stuff that you have to make sure you manage. Some diva tendencies from George Pickens, the being late to meeting stuff. But in terms of getting an actual better wide receiver too, I don't know if there was one that was actually available, realistically available. So for the cost, the pros and the cons, I think it's a worthwhile gamble for the Dallas Cowboys. And they did something, which is the stuff we're always asking for from the Jones boys anyway. And we'll go more in depth on this in the future too, tomorrow. I do wonder if they're done making moves. Minimum, a player is going to have to be cut. Like you don't have the available roster spot, so someone is about to get cut by the Cowboys. Maybe it's one of those depth wide receivers, a Seth Williams, a Kelvin Harmon. Like, that wouldn't surprise me if one of those guys end up getting just released and the Cowboys say, we've got other options, it's fine. I do wonder if they could explore backfield options. There's been some buzz on Breece Hall. Okay. Nick Chubb's a free agent. Is he an option given the down year he had? I would love to get a defensive tackle, so that's probably actually harder to do than the backfield spot. And I'd be on board with all of those. Those aren't going to be crazy expensive. They're not going to be massive long-term instant commitments. That's like what smart teams do. Like, you try to push some chips in a little bit and not sacrifice your long-term future stuff. So we'll see what happens for the Cowboys as we move forward here. Trade details, again, if you're just now tuning in, George Pickens and a 6th in 2027, and the Steelers get a 2026 third and a 2027 fifth-round pick. So those are the trade details for the Pickens swap, which you had the heavy buzz last night, and then officially official this morning with the Cowboys announcing it too, by the way. Fun times in Dallas. Actually doing stuff. Not how they normally do this here. Turds, Olivia broke this news at 1 a.m. She did wake me up because I was trying to go to sleep and not paying attention to my phone. She did kind of wake me up and saw the pretty Ricky of like, it's happening. So I'm like, okay, let's go do a video, 1 a.m. And then I set my alarm for like 7 a.m. Eastern, and boom, there it is officially. So how it goes. John! So I got the energy drink here that doesn't like the green screen background. Corners haven't been healthy since Orlando Scandrick. It's how football goes sometimes, isn't it? It's not fun, that is how it goes. Lucid, this is a scary offense now. CD and George and Ferg and Tolbert and Jaden Blue with a better offense and good defense. We should make the playoffs. I think that is the expectation. That making the playoffs is like what this team will define if it was a good or a bad season. Not perfect, not a disaster, but like if that's a good or bad season. You have a first-time head coach. I think there are some, we're kind of ignoring that because of the good moves there, but like I think that is I think that is like your over/under. Like, do you make the playoffs or not? Like, that should be your goal, and then see what happens and build on it again next year. That should be the goal and expectation. Tristan K says, thank God J. Lou isn't here. Would have fought Pickens. I did see his tweet, too. It was kind of funny. He doesn't like him. Maybe that one worked out for the best. J. Lou's also like a good teammate. Like I think he would have like gotten over it. I think both guys would have gotten over it. Plus, it's a receiver in a corner. Like they would have fought at training camp and it would have been fine. Guarantee they would have fought in training camp. Guaranteed. All right, the super chat menu here on today's show. $5 Venmo to get into the Micah decision pool. $10 baby name submissions. I will text my wife what name you want to give our second kid. It's a boy, by the way. So we're not going to do, Olivia 2 or something. $20 for the Bean Boozled. I might just make that a shot at this point because I don't want to do any of those anymore. And a beer bong is $50. Down to do it if we get another 50. We already did one today. We can do another one with no food in my stomach. It's fine. So grade that trade for George Pickens. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Grade that trade for George Pickens. It is the pinned comment on today's video. 70% voting A, 26% voting B, 4% voting C. There is 1% voting D or F. I'll give some shout-outs here in the comments. Rashard says A. D1 Buckeye says A. Alex says A+. A lot of A's in there, which, I mean, it's certainly exciting the first time. When the Cowboys do stuff, it's at receiver, isn't it? It's kind of funny how that one turns out. So, grade the trade A, B, C, D, or F. Omar says just name your kid Jerry Emmett. 10,000 aura points. We name him Tyler. It's guaranteed future Cowboys offensive lineman. Guaranteed first round pick. So get those votes in. A, B, C, D, or F in the comment section of today's show. Chris Beast, I haven't been happy since the Green Bay loss. Finally happy. I get it. Like, I totally understand the just like, not, there hasn't been much to be happy about, right? We had the fun game against the Browns, and then it crashed out against the Saints, and it never recovered again. And it would be, frankly, it would be concerning to me if you had the first year of the head coach and you didn't have, like, anything to be excited about. Like, that's never what you want to have happen. You want to have something to get yourself excited about. So that is not, it would be, again, concerning if you didn't have something to be happy about there. All right, we will get to a mailbag here on the Cowboys Report. We'll answer all fallout from George Pickens stuff and where you want to go from here. We will be live again tomorrow, by the way. Why not? Might as well. So get your questions in or your super chats in via hashtag Cowboys or with the super chat. I think we start from the scratch on the super chat side. I think that's fine. I did like the I did like that kind of run of Jotman about Amari Cooper and JT's 50 and Wes's 10. I think those were some good ones. If they're there, I know it's very tough for you to find them. So not a big deal if not. So if you have questions, comments, thoughts, whatever on the Cowboys, Pickens, etc., get them in via hashtag Cowboys. Or if you want to guarantee that you get in on the show, you can super chat. I see Lucid's super chat in there. We will get to that as well. If we get any 50s while we are doing the mailbag cut, I will do the beer bong afterwards because it kind of ruins the flow of the show if I do it in the middle of it. So hashtag Cowboys or skip the line with the super chat. Get those in for me in the comments section of today's show. It was the other Jotman one. It was the $5 about Amari Cooper. That one. So get your questions in via hashtag Cowboys. Skip the line all together with a super chat. I'll open up with my Twitter, maybe? Do that? Yeah. We're doing on the fly. We were in the office for like a half hour before we got this live and set up. So we're doing it as we go here. So, again, hashtag Cowboys gets in the queue for producer Chris to find your questions and bring them up on screen. And then the hashtag, the super chat, gets you in no matter what. We're live right now as part of the George Pickens Trade. Going live for that because how could we not? Had a lot of time on Twitter to discuss that one as well. If we did not get to your question, you have Cowboys thoughts, whatever, hit me up on Twitter at What's Going Downey. We had a $50 super chat come in for JT. Thank you very much, JT. Are they done now? Will we see some more moves? Maybe the second rumored trade. Who do you think the second trade could be? Jair Alexander? And this was for the beer bong I promised we did earlier. The second trade could have simply been trade down in round one. We know they had talks on that. Alexander's kind of sort of been available, so that could be a possibility. There's been some buzz on Breece Hall. I think the Jets would be kind of stupid to trade him, but like if you can get him for a day 3 pick, like hell yeah, let's ride. So Alexander fits. The money's a huge issue there. Breece Hall fits, but like, hey, do the Jets actually want to trade him like for the value they would probably get back there? So like I wonder if it was just a trade down in round one, but maybe something else happens. I don't think we can rule it out with how aggressive they've been with trades this year, even for later picks. Jatman, should we still add Amari Cooper? Let him, Mingo, and Tolbert have a knockdown, drag-out fight for wide receiver 3. My gut tells me that they're not going to bring in Amari Cooper now because the goal there was to have a better option at wide receiver 2, and you have that now with George Pickens. So my gut tells me they're out on Amari Cooper. And I think Cooper is like, do I really want to go compete with Tolbert and Mingo? Like, I can go be a 2 or a 3 pretty much guaranteed somewhere else. So, again, I also thought the Pickens trade was kind of dead. Kind of thought it wasn't going to happen because I didn't get it from Pittsburgh's side of, like, not having another receiver option. Like, that's an issue for me. But I think that with these moves, they're probably done because they've got Mingo and Tolbert and Turpin. Like, I don't think they're going to add another receiver barring injury. Lucid, does Pickens have a 5th-year option? No. George Pickens is in the final year of his contract. The franchise tag ends up being an option if the Cowboys want to pursue that route again. The report from Clarence Hill was that the Pickens camp wanted to let things play out and maximize his value next year and not settle for maybe a team-friendly deal right now. So the Cowboys are going to owe him $3.66 million this year. That's like nothing. Like that's super cheap. And then the franchise tag or get a potential comp pick back are options beyond that. You've had plenty of time to think about this one. Grade the trade for George Pickens. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comment section. The pinned comment, by the way, of today's show. Lucid, you think CD can change Pickens? I don't know if it's CD who's responsible for that. Like, that's Pickens' thing. Pickens, in a way, CD kind of is like your vet leader and at the wide receiver room. That's probably a Schottenheimer-Dak thing. And that's probably more of like a managed thing than anything else and not like fully change him and fix there's going to be a George Pickens crash out. It's going to happen. Like, it would be great if it doesn't happen. History tells us that it will. So I wouldn't put all that on the QB and head coach, but I think your culture as a whole has to like be able to handle that. Every team has like some maybe negative culture guys, but you're hoping the rest of that is able to kind of manage it and overpower it. Crimson Cowboys. Cowboys now have the second and third most penalized wide receivers in the league, and I kind of love it. The bad boy Piston vibes. We'll pull the top ones where I can pull this up here from penalty stuff. Yeah, Pickens' issues are like, there are different types of penalties. Like, sometimes CD, I think it's like I don't really know if that should have been a penalty type of deal there. Pickens just like has crash outs to me, which, you don't want to have. I don't want to be, someone told me, it was like, you're not going to have the third down holding penalty. Now it's going to be a first down and an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Hey, CD can't do the first down thing anymore either. So hopefully that no longer becomes an issue. Those were among the more penalized receivers. Actually, Jerry Jeudy led the league in penalties last year at receiver, which is kind of funny. And then it's actually like good receivers who are up there, like Lamb and Drake London and Metcalf and Tyreek Hill and George Pickens and Malik Neighbors. That's kind of a weird grouping there. Also, like, don't do false starts. Like, hopefully that's gone with McCarthy being gone. From Grungle Trunk, how upsetting and demoralizing would it be for Micah to get traded? I just, like, as I've seen comments, like, I don't think it makes any sense. Like, it defeats the purpose of adding a George Pickens to then trade away your best player and your best defensive player by a huge margin. Like, I don't get that. Like, I don't see it happening. I don't think Micah wants to go anywhere else. Like, I don't think the Cowboys want to. I think it's the same stupid nonsense of the Lamb stuff last. Like, it'll get done. I think it'd be really weird. Like, I wouldn't understand that. I'd be shocked, and I would be kind of demoralized because, like, why? That's what a team that is trying to blow it up does. So now you can get Cowboys draft gear. Hopefully some George Pickens jerseys available soon too. I'll put that on the community if so. Chatsports.com/Cowboys draft rookie jerseys. You can go search for the Pickens ones depending on when you're watching this too. Draft gear as well. Link will be in the comments section. Clickable link over there in the corner on top of that. Chatsports.com/Cowboys draft. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. Zach Harmon. I think the Cowboys should still sign a marker. That would be a stout wide receiver group. Yeah, but then you're kind of like, okay, are you going to go, like, what are you doing with Tolbert? Like, do you trade him? Like, I think you're actually fine at receiver. I don't think you needed 3 guys. Like, I think you needed a handful of guys. Like, or you needed just one good guy or an Amari Cooper. I think you have that now with Pickens. So I don't really think you need to have that additional player. I think you are good with healthy Lamb, healthy Pickens, healthy Tolbert, Flanoy, Mingo, Turpin. Like, that's actually at least above average wide receiver room. It's no longer the worst one if you lose CeeDee Lamb. So I don't think you need Amari anymore. So will the Cowboys make any more moves? Like, notables. They're going to cut somebody, obviously, which they'll probably do before the video goes out, so whatever. Will they make any more moves? Y for yes, N for no. Lance Dunbar's burner. How does this affect Jalen Moreno-Cropper's legacy? Feel like he's about to officially become a Cowboys legend this offseason. That maybe makes it to the practice squad again, but there's going to be a battle for, like, receiver 5/6. I guess actually not really. Like, if they carry a 6th, who is it? Flanoy or Brooks probably. Can Cropper emerge? Like, I think they're done. I think he's a practice squatter at best. Lucid. This is a scary offense now. CD and George and Ferguson. Hopefully you get a better Jake Ferguson. That would be nice. Jaden Blue, better offense, good defense. I think the playoffs are the goal. I don't really think that, as bad as last year was, the lack of success, first-time head coach, I don't think Super Bowl or bust is what you should be considering. But I think playoffs, yes or no, determines good season, yes or no. Grant Wainwater, thoughts on Pickens, 700-plus yards and 5 TDs? I think that's the floor, right? Like that's what he's been 800-plus yards every year. That assumes health, right? I think the touchdown should go up because he's got a lot better quarterback play than what he's had in the past. Like, think about what the Steelers have had in the passing game the past couple years. It was a 5-game good run from Russell Wilson. Justin Fields, who got benched. They started Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky in games in 2022, which is hilarious because they're all backups now. I guess technically Rudolph is back as the starter in Pittsburgh. 2022 was Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. And they had more interceptions than touchdowns in 2022. And in 2023, they had 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Like, it was a bad room. It was a bad quarterback play. He's not going to get maybe the same volume of targets, but maybe the same ratio, but the passing game was pretty limited in Pittsburgh, just numbers-wise. He should be able to get to those numbers pretty easily. We've got you covered with all the latest and greatest Dallas Cowboys news. Trades, everything else. Hit that sub button right now. DX Flash, see him signing Nick Chubb. I would love the signing. I'm down to try Nick Chubb. Like, for me, that kind of becomes like, okay, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, can you guys combine for 1.5 competent RBs? the prime Nick Chubb isn't available. That guy that was one of the most successful backs on the ground in the NFL, he's just not available. The guy last year was pretty bad. I think if you sign Nick Chubb, you're probably doing like a 1-year prove-it deal that isn't guaranteed a roster spot. And that's fine because it's never a bad sign. That's what Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders are. It's just temper your expectations given what he was last year, entering now his age 30 season. Freak athlete, but hey, there's some concerns there. Crush equity. Herschel Walker is why. Jerry is the best known for that trade, which gave him the trio and less than 3 firsts or 2 ones and a second and a third, and those would be horrible. Again, they were rebuilding though. Like, I agree. Like, if you're trading Micah, that's what you should. This is about the Micah trade, by the way. This is what you should be getting. Otherwise, like, why do it at all? Period. I don't know if a team's going to give that. The Herschel trade will probably never happen again. If you can get that, okay, like that's a hell of a trade package. Sweet. I don't know who's going to pay that for you. And you're also not, like, actively blowing it up. Like, hasn't been the plan ever in Dallas. Vic the Slick, how do you think the run game fares with his offensive line? It's a big question mark for me now. I think it's like the top, outside of like, do your tackles, which kind of ties in this, do your tackles play better this year? That's a big question mark for me. It's an iffy running back talent room. Jaden Blue gives you some juice you needed. The schematic changes should benefit your offensive line. Does it make it a top 10 unit? Probably not. I think your defense is still a little bit of a work in progress. I think your first-time head coach, like you're gonna have ups and downs. But I do think like playoff expectation is very much on the table again in Dallas. The trade, again, if you're just now tuning in, George Pickens, a 7th rounder in 2027, and the Steelers getting a 2026 3rd-round pick plus a 2027 5th-round pick. So future day 3 pick swap there. JAG214, a.k.a. I think it's Joaquin, I think that's how you pronounce it. And then either Angel or Angel. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. So again, sorry if I got the inflection wrong. Says the name suggestions. I'll text it to my wife right now. By the way, we'll put 2 minutes on the clock. As long as these super chats come in, we will stay live. And then if they don't come in, we'll sign off. So let me text my wife some name suggestions here. Joaquin or Angel. Can't even spell right, apparently. Spelled it wrong again, too. What am I doing out there? The E and the L in the wrong place. Your name is definitely not Angle. I'll tell you that. Appreciate that, Jag. 214. That's Joaquin Angel. Grade the trade, by the way. A, B, C, D, or F. The deal done. The Dallas Cowboys acquiring George Pickens in a overnight, early morning bonkers trade. Shout out Slick Rick. He is back. Snaps his O for Cowboy streak. It had a bit of a rough run on that one. But that deal is done. Cowboys getting their number 2 wide receiver. Grade the trade. A, B, C, D, or F for the George Pickens trade. I don't think anybody got fleeced here. This just kind of feels like the proper, fair value in the end. By the way, good tweet I just saw here, by the way, of like success route on throws and stuff. The top throws by yards and then also success rate. So, again, it's like quantity and quality. Again, this is like a, impact stuff of like, volume. Last 3 years, hitch route, 67%, out route, 58%, go route, 43%. So those are all well above average, because like the success rate gets boosted like for first downs and yards to gain and stuff there. Well over 1,500 yards on average on those 3 there. The top 3 routes that George Pickens ran the past 3 seasons, go route, 46%, hitch route, 53%, out route, 46%. That matches, that meshes. And then you let Lamb kind of do his cook work over the middle. This fits as the outside X receiver, like the better version of Michael Gallup than what you had. So, grade the trade, A, B, C, D, or F. We are at and past that 2-minute warning. We will sign off. Appreciate every single person who tuned in for the 1 a.m. video, the 7 a.m., these are all Eastern time videos, and the 10:30, 10:15 a.m. live show. Been a kind of a wild 12 hours here for the Cowboys. So hit that sub button if you haven't already. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. We will have more videos for you back live again tomorrow as well. So don't go anywhere. Subscribe. Appreciate everyone who tuned in today.